So if you look at what we talked about yesterday, when you're finding the discriminant, that's only the part underneath the square root. So this is the only piece that you have to do. The discriminant. And the discriminant is b squared minus 4ac. That's called the discriminant. If you get a number that's positive, you have two solutions. If you get a number that's negative, you have 0 real solution, 2 imaginary solution. And if you get 0, then you have 1 real solution. So we didn't have one like this yesterday because all the ones we did yesterday were already set equal to 0. But before you get started, what do you have to do with that 4? Do I add it or subtract it? Subtract it. So you're going to subtract the 4 from both sides. So that would be negative 10 n squared minus n. And then what is negative 3 minus 4? Negative 7. So A equals negative 10. What does B equal? Negative 1. Good. And C equals negative 7. So one of the big mistakes, that's a common mistake. I've been teaching 16 years, teaching pre-calc for 10. One of the most common mistakes is students will type it in their calculator like this and then wonder why when they get their test back, it's wrong. What did I forget to do? Parentheses around the negative. You have to include parentheses around your negative whenever you're typing it into your calculator. So go ahead, type that in your calculator just like that. And you should get, what did you all get? Anybody else get negative 279? Yeah. All right. So because it's negative, what does that tell us about our solutions? 2 imaginary solutions. You could also say 0 real solutions. So in other words, in this parabola, it does not cross the x-axis. That's what it's saying. The parabola does not come up high enough to cross through the x-axis. That's why you don't have, you have imaginary or no real solutions. So if we were doing a quadratic formula, we would have a negative, we would have an I. I is part of our solutions. All right, any questions about our Bell work? All right, so the third method and the last method is completing the square. We're actually going to finish up A6 today. So go ahead and copy down. This little box just has the directions on how to complete the square. So I wanted, instead of you having to write it down, I wanted you to just glue it down to save us some time. So this is how this is the third method and the final method that you'll have on the skills check Friday, and you'll also have it on the on your test. So go ahead and glue it down. If you don't have a glue stick, you can just wait for someone next to you to finish and just glue it down. And that's just the directions on how to complete the square. Now this is the only one where you do not want, it does not need to be set equal to 0 for this method. And I just recognized this. And I'm so sorry, but there's a typo. This should say equal C, not plus C. So when you're completing the square, you want it to be ax squared plus bx equals C. So I'll give you a minute to fix that. So step number 1 is move the C value across the equal sign. Step number 2 is factor out A from the left. So when I'm looking here, what is the A value? 1. So there's nothing to factor out. Step number 3 is to add B over 2 squared to both sides. So what is B? 4. So I want you to figure out what is 4 over 2 squared. So we're on step 3 now. So take B, which is 4, divided by 2 and square it. So B, 4 divided by 2 is 2, and 2 squared is what? 4. So that's what I'm going to add to both sides. So I have x squared plus 4x. I'm going to give myself some space. And I'm going to add that 4 here, and I'm also going to add the 4 here. So now we're on step 4, which is factor the left. So this is going to factor down to a perfect square. So in other words, it's going to factor down to something squared. So what are my two numbers that multiply to 4 and add to 4? So this factors down to x plus 2 squared. So if you were to factor this side down, because A is 1, again, we don't have to make a box. Our two numbers that multiply to 4 and add to 4 would be plus 2. And that's going to equal, now what is 21 plus 4? 25. So now we're down to step 5, which is take the square root of both sides and don't forget the plus minus. So let's take the square root. When you take the square root of x plus 2 squared, it's just x plus 2. And 25 just happens to be a perfect square. What is the square root of 25? So don't forget plus minus 5. And then your last step is to separate and solve. Now you only do the separate and solve. Well, we'll leave it there. But so in other words, we have x plus 2 equals positive 5 and x plus 2 equals negative 5. Go ahead and solve and get your two solutions. And that's the process to complete the square. You probably want to spend some time memorizing these steps so that we're going to practice with it today. We're going to practice with it tomorrow so that by Friday when you're asked to do it on your own, you can do it without the steps. So we're going to subtract 2. And then your two solutions will be x equals 3 and x equals negative 7. Whenever you get two numbers like this that are whole numbers, that means we could have factored it also. And that's it. That's how you complete the square. Any questions? Let's do it again. Now, who learned this in Algebra 2? Okay. And I haven't taught Algebra 2 in a while, and I don't remember us going over this, but I don't know. Who took honors? Did you take honors? The people who learned it, did you learn it in honors or regular? Regular? Okay. All right, let's do it again. Let's look at question B. So let's go ahead and copy this one down. We're going to follow those steps again. So what do you think I'm going to do first? Add the 73. So let's add 73 to both sides. So then that'll give us x squared plus 2x equals 71. Now step 2, because a is 1, we don't have to do anything with that just yet. So now we're going to skip down to step 3, which is take b over 2 squared and add it to both sides. So what is b? So take 2 divided by 2 squared. Figure out what that number is and add it to both sides. So what would be the number that I'm adding to both sides? 1. So we're going to add a 1 here, and we're going to add the 1 here. All right, go ahead and factor this side down. Again, this is going to factor down to a perfect square. So take a minute. Elijah, sit up. Figure out what numbers multiply to 1 and add to 2. It's always going to be the same number. And if you haven't realized it yet, it's always going to factor down to x and then whatever half of this number is. So because that's a plus 2, I know I'm going to put a plus 1 here. And that's always going to be the case. So we have x plus 1 squared equals 72. So now we're going to take the square root of both sides, which gives you x plus 1 equals the square root of 72, plus or minus. Now, 72 can be simplified. It's not a perfect square, but it can be simplified. What's the perfect square that goes into 72? Bigger than 9. 10 isn't a perfect square. Hold on, let me look some perfect squares up here real quick. Perfect squares. Okay, so we have 2 times 2, which is 4. What's our next one? 3 times 3. Let's go up to, let's do the first. Let's keep going. Let's see how far we can go before we run out. So 3 times 3? 4 times 4? 5 times 5? 6 times 6? 7 times 7? 8? Oop. 49. 8 times 8? 9 times 9? 10 times 10? See how far we can go before we run out of juice. 11 times 11? Okay. 12 times 12? 13 times 13? Oh, wow. Okay. 14 times 14? That was close. It's actually 196. But you all did way better than what I thought you would, okay? All right, so now that we have these numbers, what's the biggest number in this list that will go into 72? 36. All right, 36 times 2 is 72. Did I say 76? I don't know. Okay, so we have x plus 1 equals plus or minus the square root of 36 times 2, which comes down to x plus 1 equals plus minus 6 root 2. Now, the last step is to separate and solve it, but this is not a whole number. So all we really have to do at this step is subtract the 1 and move that right to the front. We're going to subtract it and drop it right there. So the final answer that I would be looking for on your test is -1 plus or minus 6 root 2. If you were to write it as separate answers, it would be -1 plus 6 root 2 and -1 minus 6 root 2. But to save, we just write it as 1. So this is the answer that I'm looking for. All right, questions or comments about how we work through that? Let me zoom back out. All right, we're going to do a couple more and then we'll end there for today. Again, we're only practicing completing the square today. That's all we're doing. Completing the square. All right, so now let's do one where we have an A value that is not 1. So when A is not 1, we still start by subtracting that C. So I'm going to move this C across. So that'll be 3x squared minus 24x equals negative 15. That's my first step. So now we have step 1 done. Step 1 is to move the C across. Now step 2 is factor out A from the left. And what is A in this example? 3. So I'm only going to take the 3 out of these two terms. So 3 comes out, and then that's going to leave me with x squared minus 8x, and then it equals negative 15. So now we're ready to complete the square. This is now my B value. So I'm at step 3. B is negative 8. So don't say it out loud, but I want you to take negative 8 divided by 2 and square it. Figure out what that number is. And that number should always be positive. It's always going to be adding. It's always going to be a positive number, because when you square a negative, it's positive. When you square a positive, it's positive. So go ahead, figure out what that number is. So what number did you get? Who got 16? All right, let's go ahead and add that to both sides. I'm going to add it inside of my parentheses here, and I'm going to add it here. All right, so now we're ready to factor this down. So again, this is always going to factor down to half of this number. So the two numbers that multiply to 16 and add to negative 8 will be half of this number, which is negative 4. And then what do you get when you add that negative 15 plus 16? You get who? 1. So now we're ready to solve it. What do you think we're going to do next? We can't take the square root yet. No, we cannot distribute because it has an exponent. Divide it. We got to divide it out. We're going to divide both sides by 3. And that will be x minus 4 squared equals 1/3. And now we're going to take the square root of both sides. So then that would be x minus 4 equals plus or minus the square root of 1/3. And then I'm going to add that 4. Now, truly, and I'm not going to get that deep, I would want you to rationalize that fraction, but we're not going to even go there for right now. It's too early in the semester to add that in. I would be perfectly fine with that answer. All right, so now it's your turn. Let's see how many of you all can do it. Any questions? All right. So I only want you to do this first one. Go ahead and copy this one down. Complete the square. I'm going to go over it with you, but I want to see how many of you all can do it by yourself. V squared minus 14b minus 13 equals 10. Go ahead and follow those 6 steps. See if you can complete the square, and then we'll go through it together. have to set it equal to 0. You should have added 13. So you can circle. Your first step should be add 13. Hopefully we all did that first. You gotta add 13 first. So it was a 10. So you gotta add 13. That's a 10. Let's just not take that yet. Okay, I got that. Yeah, so the two numbers that will multiply to be 49 and add to be 14. I agree. Okay, don't be a 10 decimal. It should be, 6, so it should be, 6 should be under the square root again. It should be positive 6 times the square root of 6. So when you take the square root of 36, it's not under the square root anymore. All right. Yeah, all right, let's go through it. All right, wasn't bad. I think about half of you all got it, which, considering this is new for most of you all, that's not bad. I'm impressed. All right, so let's talk about it. First step, add the 13 to both sides, like that. And then that should give you b squared minus 14b equals 23. And then this 49, that got that from taking negative 14 divided by 2 and squaring it. That's how I got 49. So I added 49 here and here. So now we're going to factor this down. So this factors down to v minus 7 times b minus 7, which is v minus 7 squared. 23 plus 49 is 72. So I didn't show this part here, but 7, because we had that in the last one. But 72 breaks apart to 36 times 2, which becomes 6 root 2. So my last step would be to just add that 7. And then that would give us 7 plus or minus 6 root 2. Okay, hold on one second, because that was a little icier than what I thought it would be. So I'm going to give you, instead of one more, we got 2 more. So, wait, did I just do this one now? I think we did that one already. Okay, nope. So yeah, we just have one more because we already did this question. So I thought I had 2 more we could do, but I only have 1 more. All right, so let's go ahead and do the second one. And then we'll pick up here tomorrow with more examples. All right, so go ahead and do number 2. So again, you're going to start by adding that 85 to both sides. That should be your first step. So this one we had a 10 in the front, we can't ignore that 10. So it's kind of like how we did this one. Yeah, so then you factored it out, but the 10 is still there. You see how the 10 is still here? So it's gonna be 81 over 10. All right. So, I'm with you, kinda, but this should be under a square root. Yeah.
Square root of 81, which is 9.
Right.
And then divided by 10,
So, I didn't really get into that yet, but what you have in this example, and I haven't talked about it, one second, I haven't talked about it because I thought that would be too much to introduce when I'm already doing something new. But what you have is the square root of 81 over 10, right? But you would have to technically break it apart to that, which is really this, which you can't leave. So this is really what it is, okay? I just didn't want to go there with you because we already learning something new. So I would be okay if you stopped it here, okay? So I just didn't want to go down this train considering we already learning something new. Yeah, 81 or 81 over 10, I think that's it. 80. You have to factor out the 10. Like this one. You have to factor the 10 out of the east side, out of those two first. Yeah. Okay, so again, I didn't really want to talk about how to handle a fraction, but really when you have a fraction, you have to simplify the top and bottom. But for this example, if you left it like this, I would give you full credit. Just recognize that eventually, not right now, the true right answer will be 1 plus or minus 9 root 10 over 10. That's the real answer. But I'm accepting this one for right now because we haven't talked about how to simplify a radical. Okay, so again, I know this is something new. We're going to keep practicing it tomorrow. Use the rest of this time to continue working on your homework. Homework 1 is going to be, we're going to grade it and collect it at the beginning of class Thursday. All right, you should now you should be able to do every question. So I've covered everything in homework 1. And tomorrow we're going to do a little bit more practice and then start the material for homework 2. Any questions? All right.